The Banqiao Dam disaster in China, which occurred in August 1975, remains the deadliest dam failure in human history and one of the most tragic engineering catastrophes of the 20th century. Built on the Ru River in Henan Province, Banqiao was considered a feat of modern hydrological engineering when it was completed in the 1950s, designed under Soviet guidance and promoted as a steel-strong safeguard against floods. However, behind its grand image lay design flaws, political pressure, and inadequate safety measures that would ultimately turn it into a ticking time bomb. During the summer of 1975, Typhoon Nina struck southern China with unprecedented intensity. The storm's rains were relentless, and within a matter of days, the region received over a year's worth of rainfall. Banqiao Dam, which was originally built to withstand what engineers called a one-in-a-thousand-year flood, was suddenly facing conditions far beyond its design capacity. Torrential water poured into the reservoir, swelling it to dangerous levels, while communication systems broke down, leaving local officials unable to coordinate an effective response. As the storm raged on, engineers at the site grew increasingly desperate. They attempted to release water from the spillways, but the gates were clogged with debris and sediment, reducing their effectiveness. Villagers downstream were barely warned. Many were told to remain in their homes rather than evacuate, as officials feared mass panic. This tragic misjudgment would cost hundreds of thousands of lives. In the early hours of August 8, 1975, the Banqiao Dam finally gave way under the extraordinary pressure. A massive wall of water, estimated to be 10 meters high and traveling at nearly 50 kilometers per hour, surged downstream. The force was so immense that it wiped entire villages off the map within minutes, leaving behind nothing but mud and rubble where homes, schools, and farmlands once stood. The collapse triggered a domino effect, causing 61 smaller dams in the region to fail as well. This compounded the devastation, releasing more torrents of floodwater across Henan Province. The once fertile and densely populated plains became a vast inland sea, stretching for miles in every direction. Survivors described the flood as the sky falling down, a sudden and unstoppable deluge that destroyed everything in its path. Immediate casualties numbered in the tens of thousands, as people drowned in their homes or were swept away by the violent currents. However, the true scale of the disaster unfolded in the days and weeks that followed. With infrastructure obliterated, survivors were cut off from food, clean water, and medical supplies. Epidemics of disease spread rapidly, famine took hold, and many succumbed to injuries or starvation. Estimates of the death toll vary, but most historians believe that more than 170,000 people perished as a direct or indirect result of the dam's collapse. Millions more were left homeless, and the economic devastation to China's agricultural heartland was incalculable. Entire communities were erased, and survivors carried the trauma of that night for generations. What made the Banqiao disaster even more tragic was that it might have been preventable. In the years before the collapse, Chinese hydrologists had warned about the dam's vulnerabilities and the risks of over-reliance on its flood control promises. Yet, during the political climate of the time, such warnings were ignored or suppressed, as leaders promoted the dam as a symbol of progress and strength. For decades, the true extent of the Banqiao Dam failure remained a tightly guarded secret. Information about the disaster was censored within China, and only in the 1990s did details begin to emerge, allowing the world to recognize the full magnitude of the tragedy. By then, many survivors had long suffered in silence, their stories untold. Today, the Banqiao Dam disaster serves as a stark reminder of the limits of human engineering and the dangers of neglecting safety for political prestige. Modern dam projects worldwide study this failure as a case of how mismanagement, poor maintenance, and disregard for warnings can combine to create catastrophic consequences. The lessons from Banqiao emphasize the importance of transparency, disaster preparedness, and long-term planning in infrastructure development. Flood control dams can save lives, but when built or managed poorly, they can also unleash destruction on a scale far greater than the disasters they were meant to prevent. Ultimately, the Banqiao Dam collapse was not just a natural disaster, but a human-made tragedy, born of overconfidence and neglect. It stands as the biggest dam failure in history, a somber chapter reminding us of the responsibility engineers and leaders bear when building structures that millions of lives depend upon.